Hi everyone, and welcome back to Shattered Silence, Stories of Recovery and Resilience. My name is Jori, and again, we are here with Teresa. Teresa, Thank you for being here. She is the producer of Shattered Silence.
I love coming back here and doing this episode with you because I get to tell the stories about how everybody got to become a guest.
How we all connected.
Yeah, how we all connected, it's always so special. The connection just seems so special. It seems like as every guest has come on here, there's been some sort of special connection.
Yeah. And we say there's no mistakes.
Right?
It just all lines up the way it's meant to be. But yeah, we'll just kind of talk about our season 2. We're finally wrapping up season 2. Very thankful we've been able to connect with all the people we've been able to connect with. And like we said, it's just there's no mistakes. The way that we've connected with all these people, I feel like it's just been meant to be.
Yeah, I agree. Starting off with Adriana, she was our first guest.
Yeah.
And you brought her on because you guys connected.
Yeah, we connected right after Kyle passed. We connected online, and we just have been there for each other, honestly, just since her husband Eric passed away, since Kyle passed away. We just have been man, we're going through this right now. Now we're going through this, and we just can relate so much. And just our stories and how Eric and Kyle have passed away, it's we really truly get one another. Mm-hmm. Because it's it's one thing to be friends with another widow that has lost, their husband, has kids, but it's another to have the same type of loss too, because we can talk about, I don't know, just that feeling of sadness, mm-hmm. Sad that they made that decision, and what was going through your mind, and all those same thoughts of the why.
Right. I know it's kind of like a connection that you guys have that nobody else has. You could have a best friend, but that she really doesn't know what you're going through because it hasn't happened to her. Mm-hmm. So this makes it connected. And I think that's why we have these communities too. You building Shattered Silence and having this community, and there's a lot of influencers out there that have gone through the same thing that you have, mm-hmm. and people listen to their stories because they're connecting with them. Mm-hmm. They may feel lost and not know, but online there's a connection, and so they gravitate to you, mm-hmm. and they want to know more, and that's why you have this platform.
And I feel like a lot of people that have been on the podcast too, everyone has their own story, and I feel like that's a big thing about social media is that people follow along on social media, but they get bits and pieces. So it's kind of like this. It's really nice to have the podcast because you can hear the full story. Mm-hmm. People are always curious, but they don't always ask. And if they do ask, sometimes we think it's a little insensitive the way you ask. So it's it's nice to be able to just share and just inform people of just what you've dealt with, honestly.
Right. She felt so relieved because she came on here and she didn't tell the story about how he died. Mm-hmm. So when she came on here, I know that when she was talking to you and afterwards, I asked her, how do you feel? She's like, I feel like a weight has been lifted, and it makes she felt inspired to finally, speak her truth and to be able to talk about it because it was something that she was holding inside. Yeah. And so once she got that out, it's it's life-changing.
Yes, it's like a freaking huge breath of fresh air because it's just you feel like you're just holding in this secret, but you feel like everyone knows at the same time because you know what I mean? And you're just I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say, and you just fear of this judgment, which we've talked about so much, is that's why people don't come forward a lot. It's because they just fear that, one, you're going to be judged, even if it wasn't your decision. But two, you don't want your partner that is no longer with us to feel judged either. Mm-hmm. It's just you don't want to quote, bash their name, you know what I mean? Because you don't want that for them. You want to remember them in the good ways. But it's also, like we've said several times, it's important for people to know the struggles of addiction. And
this is what happens when you are in addiction. This is what happens when you don't kick that habit and you don't, you know, try to get better, you can die.
Yeah, it's preventable. It's preventable.
You can die if you don't get better, if you don't try to get better, because it just wrecks people's lives. Yeah. And it leaves you, it leaves your kids, it leaves your family, you leave your family, you know, and you don't realize it until like it's happened to you.
Right. And I feel like this season specifically, I feel like we didn't talk a whole lot about addiction this season. We had a lot of, you know, postpartum and mental health and miscarriage, but we didn't talk a ton about overdose. But I just feel like, I mean, it's so important because even in the first season, we're like, it's really reaching like our youth and stuff now too. And so even this morning, I was dropping Brooks off with one of my friends, and she was like, I heard that she was talking to someone that worked at one of the high schools in town, and they said that this year they've used Narcan 3 times on 3 different students in high school. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm thinking, you know, that's crazy, like this school year. And they're like, no, this calendar year. So from January, we're in April right now, January to April, 3 times in high school, they've used Narcan. And I literally have chills down my legs because it's reaching these kids, and it makes me so scared just being a mom now. It's like, if it's starting there, that is the rest of their life that they are going to struggle. And it brings me to tears because I'm like, that is so, so sad that it's going to start that early and you're going to struggle the rest of your life. So that's why we're trying to get this word out, because we don't want them to start an addiction, especially so young. Like, you have so much life to live. Right. And addiction is so hard.
Yeah, it's important to get help right away. Yeah. Right away, especially at that age. Yeah, it's insane how young it starts. And yeah, we didn't touch a lot on addiction, but that's what this podcast is about. It's about mental health in general, you know, like things that affect us. Right. And so you're going to be hearing and seeing a lot of different stories. It's not always about addiction, but we want to make sure that you know that we still care about that. We still want that out there. We still want to make sure that we're getting it out there and to, you know, break that stigma. Adriana, and that's what Adriana's podcast was about too. That she started a podcast because of this. It inspired her.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this even before we started this podcast. Yeah. You know, even before Shattered Silence, Adriana and I talked, and we're like, well, maybe we can like co-host something together, or maybe we can do something. Yeah. But we both just had this like spark that we just wanted to help, and we wanted to talk about it.
And her podcast is Just for Today podcast, and you're going to be a guest on her.
Yes, I am.
And you have like a whole different, that's going to be exciting.
I know. I sat in the chair and I'm like, whoo, I can take a deep breath. I don't have to be the host this time.
You guys need to tune into that one. She got a lot of hate comments too, which I was really surprised. I don't understand how people don't want people to like learn about these things.
I do want to address, actually, speaking of that, one comment that I saw on one of her pages was that, well, you knew he was an addict. Like, why did you choose to have kids with him? And to me, I'm sorry, that's such a crazy, crazy comment. It's like, these people, which is why we're talking about it, are not their addiction. You're not going to just be like, all right, sorry you're struggling, peace out, like, deal with it all on your own. Like, if you love someone, you're going to try and take care of them. You're going to do whatever you can to, like, get them back to where they need to be, you know? And I don't know. I just think that it's a very close-minded thought, too. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, well, you chose this, so sucks for you. I'm like, okay, we could say a lot of things like that in life in general, you know? Sorry that happened to you. That sucks, you know? But
thankfully, we have a lot of, you know, people that realize, you know, these are just trolls.
Yeah. We have more supporters than haters, you know.
These are just people that are just unhappy with themselves or something. I'm not really sure. But all in all, she had a great experience being on here just because, you know, she was able to let that out, and it was a pretty good episode to watch. And then we had Mackenzie, who was right after her.
Yes, yeah. And so we had worked together. That's how we met. We worked together probably like over 7 years ago now. I was working with her and assisting her a lot before I even met Kyle. And so I just remember following along with her story just because we had worked together. And I remember when she had her, emergency hysterectomy while she had to deliver her baby, I want to say 26 weeks. And so her story is crazy, all of that. And also talking about a little bit about domestic violence, which we also have not talked a lot about.
Our followers are DMing us and saying, you should have this, this topic. You should try on this topic, or you should see, you should get this person on your podcast. And there were a lot about loss of a child, of a baby, of a miscarriage, not being able to carry.
Right.
There was a lot of that was coming through.
Right.
So I think that this season kind of fell into that whole category.
Yeah, that loss is not just the physical loss of a person. Loss, you continue to lose when you lose someone. And what I mean by that is Mackenzie, she got to keep her baby. He survived. She was, in the hospital for a long time. He was in the NICU. But she also has to grieve the loss of her not being able to carry to term, that she couldn't carry another child. And she is thankfully going through her surrogacy journey right now.
And that's when we talked about Amelia Malloy.
Right.
They came through for her through her first surrogacy.
Right.
And they were able to help her and her new husband.
Right. Yeah, so Mackenzie had won the grant for her surrogate and her surrogacy journey, but then Amelia Malloy's helps with all kinds of infertility, surrogacy. I think they even said that they help with adoption if it gets to that point too. IVF, all kinds of stuff for infertility, which is a great nonprofit to have, honestly.
Yes. Okay. Our next guest was Officer Dan Williams.
Yeah.
That was huge.
Yeah, and I feel like I honestly want to have some more first responders in on our episodes because, well, one, it's very courageous to come on and speak as a current law enforcement officer.
And he was very brave for talking about his mental health issues.
Right. Because it's not
easy
what he's seen and that kind of stuff, but it's his own mental health that he dealt with while, from seeing what he saw.
Yeah. It affects you, and sometimes you don't even realize that it's happening.
Right.
You think you have it in control.
Right.
But it comes out in other ways.
Yeah, and that brings us to Lillian's episode, because her husband was a first responder, NYPD detective, and same thing with him, it's he saw a lot. That was his job, to help those that were mentally struggling, and like she had said, those that are going to jump off of a bridge or those crazy scenarios, and he had to see that, and he had to deal with it, and he had to help, and ultimately he ended up committing suicide.
Taking his own life.
And he, and that's what
I want to talk about Lillian a little bit because she had such an impact, I feel like, on me and you. I feel like she started watching Shattered Silence from the very beginning. Set her timer for the first episode. And she happened to just go through it at that time. That was the time that was happening. And then she reached out, and I talked to her on Instagram, and she said she wanted to come in and talk and tell her story and about how to get through this first 6 months, So she flew down from New York and came in here, and it was like an instant connection with her.
It was.
Yeah, we went to dinner with her and everything. She was such she's such an amazing person because she's such a bright light, I felt really connected for her, and I felt for her because it's such a difficult subject to talk about when your husband takes your life.
Right.
And he saved people.
Right. That's literally what he did,
I just think it's amazing, and her mission is just to talk about their mental health, first responders' mental health. They need a reset, they need a break, they need to be able to reconnect and get that done, and she just wanted to make sure.
I feel like it, especially at the time that she came in, not even a year had gone by. Well, still a year hasn't even gone by. And so she talked about it really early in her grief, and so I think that's really brave to do. She talked really well too, and didn't break down too much for talking so like recently on it, you know.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty strong of her.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see it come for full circle too, like someone that came to follow us and was gonna just be a follower.
And the feedback she got from her episode 2 was very encouraging. The NYPD, they were so nice to her and let her know that she did a wonderful job with the podcast, and she had so much support when it came out. Everyone was just like rallied around her, and she just felt like it was an amazing, life-changing experience for her too.
Yeah, and I feel like that goes back to us saying everyone's all nervous before talking about it, and she was like, I'm not sure, I don't want to like make anybody mad that I'm like talking about this, you know, but it's so nice to hear that she got the support that she was needing.
And I just don't think that another thing that we need to like remind people is death is not shameful.
Right.
Like, it's not shameful. You should be able to talk about, you know, what I've learned about doing this podcast is it helps so much more when you talk about it rather than you hold it in and not talk about it.
Right.
Like, it's more healing for you if you talk about how you're feeling, and each guest that's come here and sat down in this desk and on this chair and that's lost someone, it's made such an impact on them and how they feel about it, how they're able to talk about it.
Right. And I, like, just speaking from personal experience, sometimes I do want to avoid being sad and crying, and you can't always put it off because you got to let it out at some point. You really do. Sometimes, I mean, I've talked about it before, like, there's times where you'll have longer stretches, like, without breaking down and being sad, but then there's times where you have maybe a couple days where you're just, like, struggling, you know, you're just sad. And I was thinking about it just a couple days ago, and like, man, I haven't turned Kyle's phone on in over a year, and it just made me tear up to think about it because, like, his phone and his background on his phone is me and Brooks. And that was, like, a picture taken right before he passed. And when I turn that phone on, when I see that dang picture, I'm just like, it's just a reminder to me of how much time has gone by and how much he's missed. And it makes me so sad because Brooks is just, like, thriving, you know, he's growing and he's just so fun and so goofy, and I see Kyle and him, like, every day, and it just breaks my heart to think that he was only 9 months old when his dad died and he didn't get to experience life with dad, you know. And even more recently, like, in the last couple days, Brooks has a little dog stuffed animal that one of his cousins got him, and it has one of the voicemails that Kyle had left me, you know, like, hey babe, you know, like, so it's his voice, and Brooks keeps pressing it. Like, the last couple days he has it out on the couch and he's pressing it and pressing it and pressing it, and the other day he's looking at it, he says, hi Dada, what are you doing? And it's like the innocence, you know, it's like he thinks his dad is in this stuffed dog, like, Dad, what are you doing in there, you know? And it's just like, and I just sat there with just big old tears in my eyes, you know, I'm just like, like, how do we navigate this, you know? And it goes back to just, like I said, it's not just a one and done, like, I'm grieving this person that's gone, but yeah, it's grieving the loss of, like, the things that he's not going to get to experience.
You're going to keep grieving because there's going to be experiences that you just wish that he could, you know.
And it's like, you know, these holidays that are coming up now, like Easter and then Mother's Day and then Father's Day, and, you know, it's just like those, like, the holidays hurt, because we didn't get much with Kyle since Brooks, you know, has been here. But anyways, went off on this whole tangent.
That's okay. But that kind of reminds me of Leah, when she came in here to talk about, she lost her father to addiction very young. And so it was such a secret for her for a long time. And when she came, she messaged me, and I knew her from my daughter. They went to high school together. And I kind of knew that she lost her parent, but I didn't know how. And Michaela's, my daughter, she didn't know either. And, that was something whenever they would hang out together, I didn't really realize. And then years later, here I am producing this podcast. She wanted to come on and tell the story about her dad that she never talked about. And she told me, there's only very few people that know how my father passed away. Right. And it was because there was a little bit of shame behind it. She didn't want people to think differently of her or her family. And so, but she was ready now, years later, to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, she is a few years older than me, and her dad, I want to say, passed away when she was 8.
Yeah.
And so, with that, it's just like, not only that, we're finally starting to talk more about addiction and have it be more known, or I don't want to say accepted, but you know what I mean?
It's not accepted, but it needs to be talked about. It's not as...
So it's more common and spoken about, I guess I should say. But think back when she was 8 years old, that was not talked about as much as it is now, you know what I mean? So I totally get her as a young kid thinking like, well, I don't want to tell them that my dad overdosed. Like, that's just a weird thing to talk about. And I think about that now too with Brooks, of course, like all these episodes I can relate in some way. But yeah, it's just something that's going to be a hard thing to navigate as we get there. And Brooks is going to start asking the questions, and he's going to be curious, and it's just hard.
And she talked about like how her mother never remarried after her dad because she loved her dad so much that, or her husband so much that she never remarried. And we talk about people, some of us like that move on, that can move on, and then some people that can't move on. And then she ended up passing away. And the crazy thing is that 25 years to the date, the same day she passed away, she was of her husband's death. That's how it was, the date of the death.
She passed away on the same day her dad passed away.
Yeah. And she said she felt some sort of comfort with that just because, like, she knew her parents were back together.
They're finally together again, And it's like, what a, like, bittersweet thought, right? But still, it's like if she had to go, that was her sign that they're together. I don't know. I just really believe in signs and significant dates. And I'm like,
so many signs that happen throughout this whole process with this podcast.
I know. We've talked about a lot of them, but there's just so many. Like, we can't even talk about all of them.
She just felt it made her feel a certain way too, like a little relief for talking about it. And that's why we have this podcast. Like, you come on here, you feel like such a relief. And that was one of the things, she got it out. She told everybody. She went from not telling, like, us, she had like maybe 2 people that she had told her whole life. And then she just went and told everybody, so that was pretty impactful.
We have a message from our sponsors, Aspire Counseling Services. We just want to remind everyone that seeking treatment should never be stigmatized. Aspire specializes in providing support and treatment for both teens and adults with mental health and substance use disorders, recognizing that these conditions often do coexist. They are an amazing resource, and you can get started by texting or calling the number 888-585-7373 to enroll at any time.
Julianne Corona. She came on as a guest. Right. Yeah. And she was like a success story, like a huge success story. And she was like the model of, you can do this. You can get over addiction. You can, I don't know if you ever get over it, but you can live without it.
Right. You can live your life. You can have success.
Yeah. Like, you can get through. You can be rock bottom and get back up.
Right. Exactly. And hers was the perfect example of it. And it reminds me also back to David from the first season.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's the same thing. It's like they both struggled with addiction, but they were able to finally get the help they needed, and both are very successful people now.
Yeah. I love her story just because, she was trying to find a way about postpartum. It kind of like her topic hit like a lot of topics that we have talked about, her guest spot, so her episode, I should say. it talked about a lot, it talked about addiction, talked about postpartum, PTSD, because her husband had PTSD from the military.
And helping deal with her husband, who had some mental health problems from the military, PTSD, but how she was able to help him deal with it too.
Yes.
Because sometimes you just don't know, how do I deal with someone who's going through a PTSD
like you
episode?
Wish that you had known with Kyle, and like that needs to be talked about. Like how do you deal with somebody with PTSD?
How to speak with someone and not set them off and feel like they're being judged, because that can be the complete opposite effect. You're trying to help, but they feel judged, and they just go right back to what
she was saying. I was just wow, like that's like a great tip,
right?
Like that's great information to know. I really enjoyed her episode just because like she had so many things going on and was able to overcome and made like a great business out of,
very successful business. So we had Craig Harrison come on to an episode, and I feel like I have heard about Craig for a long time just from being at OLPH.
Yeah. I went to St. Francis. That was my church.
Okay. Well, we had gone there for a while, and then he went over to OLPH, right? And my family has always gone to actually both churches, so that's kind of how I heard of him. But my cousin Corbin passed away in 2019, and then he was very close with my family and helping them just all the grief. Process, and he did my cousin's funeral as well.
Yeah, he did my brother's funeral as well.
Yeah, and so his episode was great, just talking about grief in general. And just,
I can listen to him forever.
Yeah. We got a lot of really good feedback from that episode, so if you have not listened to the episode, go back and listen to that one. It's just an all-around...
It's very insightful on how to deal with the guilt and with grief whenever you lose someone. A lot of people feel guilt, and I did with my brother. I felt a lot of guilt, and I just remember, the things that he said to me that just stuck with me to help me get through it. And I thought, he's going to be a perfect person to be a guest on here. And boy, did it show, because our clips have been going viral almost.
I mean, just keeping memories alive too. How he would pass flowers out for his sister that passed away, and that's how he liked her to be remembered, because she loved sunflowers. And so there's always, I don't know,
just keeping their memory alive is what he's saying. So it's got like a healing point for you, like you don't have to just mourn them. You can keep their memory alive by doing little things like that. And just kind of like what you're doing here, you're keeping Kyle's memory alive by having this podcast to help people. And these are just different ways that you can not only make yourself feel better, but just letting them know, like he's not gone, he's still
I just literally, you saying that just like makes me think about Kyle too, and just be like, this is so cool. Like just like to think about how he would like look at us and be like, you guys, this is awesome. Like this is really cool.
Oh, he would.
So yeah, he always talked about us working together.
And here we are. Yep. It's one of those signs, like it's that whole full circle thing. That's the crazy thing is,
I know.
Like he always wanted it to happen like that. And here we are together, and that, and how would we know,
I know.
That is so crazy. But he's a great, Craig Harrison is great. He has a book. He writes books. He speaks here. I think tonight he's speaking at the Crystal Palace. At the Crystal Palace, he's on Instagram. He's got a website you can go look at. He's helped a lot of people get through losing loved ones. Elaine, who was on our podcast season 1, she talks about him all the time, about how wonderful he is to help her, get through the loss of her son. So if you get a chance, if anyone gets a chance, you can look up his books.
Yes.
Because he's very, very good about helping people. Just the words that he has to say, he's just really good with words.
Yeah.
Emily Cave Boyd was a guest on this podcast. And hers was really special. Her episode was really special. I kept getting people DMing and saying I should have her on the podcast. And so finally I'm like, why do they want this girl? So I went to go research. I looked at her Instagram and I'm like, oh, she wrote this book, and I could see, I'm like, oh, she's so sweet. Like, she looks so sweet, So I'm like, I'm gonna email her. So I emailed her and let her know that, some people were requesting her and we would love to have her on. And I didn't know her story because I know she wrote a book, but I didn't know it. So she emailed me, and then we made an appointment to talk and a meeting. And so she's like, you're from Bakersfield, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I know Baco, I live there. And I was like, oh, really? And I'm like, tell me your story. And then she said, my husband was a Condors player. And I was like, what? So I'm like, what? No way. And she's like, yeah. And then she shows me this picture, because it was like, Zoom. And she shows me this picture, and she's like, this little boy I just had this sent to me from a fan, this picture. And I couldn't see the front of him. It was just the back, and it had her husband's name, Cave, on the back of the jersey. And I was like, that's so cool. She's all, do you know the influencer Britt Horton? And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's Jori, our host, that's her sister-in-law. And she's like, no way. So she's like, that was sent to me a couple days ago, and then I saw your email and I opened it up, and you're from Bakersfield. And she's like, and I'm like, this is a sign. And I'm like, okay, here we go, speaking of signs. And I told her how big we were on signs. And I'm like, how about that connection?
Yeah. And so
that was the crazy connection.
I know, it's so crazy. And like, when she came here and everything, and we talked again about signs, and we're talking about, even on our way here, she's like, this one song that like was so important to me. I can't remember, it was important to her and Colby. Yeah. And she's like, it came on not once, not twice, but 3 times while I'm traveling to Bakersfield. And so it was like my sign, like, okay, I'm meant to do this, And so, I mean, we had a good time with her.
Her parents flew down. They flew down from Canada to come be with her, to support her. That was really special. Yeah. And, she talked about, like, because later on that evening we were going to the game and your parents were going to be there. And she talked about something that I think that we should maybe, like, have them on or something.
I think so, too.
Or your parents on. Yeah. Because talking about the supporting your daughter that just lost her husband. And I thought that was something that was a good subject. Like, we really need to discuss that, because that's got to be hard for your parents, and, what it's like to support your daughter who just lost their loved one.
Right.
Their
and that's
partner.
Like, I mean, I need to pick my parents' brain a little bit too.
No, we just need to have them on here.
I know. Because, them seeing me not only go through the loss of Kyle, but going through the loss of my best friend as a child,
and that's true.
And just like, how do you navigate? How do you help your child through this like significant loss, like traumatic too, both times? It's just, we've talked about just listening to episodes to support your people, but it's like we need to actually get the perspective of the parent too.
Yeah, because you guys you're still their little babies, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like that, exactly. You're young, you guys are young, and oftentimes, and that's what we do, a lot of our followers, our supporters, they're young. They're young widows that are going through this, or widowers, so having that on, I think we need to do that. I think we need to have your parents on here.
I think
her
so
parents
too.
were great supporting her through this whole thing. We did the podcast, and then we went to lunch with them, and then we went to the Condors, the arena, and did
I think that was, well, first off, it's very special regardless, but we didn't mention that she had never been back here since he had passed, which go back and listen to that episode too. But Cliff Notes, it was during COVID and they had left. They finally were able to get back to Canada and found a tumor in his brain, and so they never came back here after they had left. And so her being back here for the first time, and that was the last Condors was the last team he had played for because...
his last game was played here in Bakersfield.
Yes, and he passed 1 month later.
His last game was March 7th, and then he passed away April 11th. So it was, and then the way it landed was the same time, you know, like she came and filmed, or we did this podcast around the same time. It was like it was the 5-year mark, which was kind of, you know, like milestone, 5 years, you know. And I feel like that was her coming back here was a sense of healing for her. It doesn't heal you completely, but it gives you some sort of like a healing
some sort of closure.
Yeah, some sort of closure. And she just kept thanking us, you know, for bringing her back here. And I just think again, I think that was supposed to happen. Oh, yeah. That was meant for her to happen. Like this whole scenario was supposed to happen. And us going through and her visiting the arena, seeing the locker room, going on the ice, that was like, it was so special to see it. I cried several times.
Yeah. And it started my son's hockey addiction now, too.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
He's always like, going to hockey? Like, not tonight. He's like, go hockey? See Zamboni? See Zamboni?
That's
so when we went to the game that night after we did her episode and stuff, took Brooks to his first hockey game, and now he's obsessed.
He's obsessed with it.
I've taken him to a couple more since. But
Does he love the hockey stick?
Oh, yeah. I took a picture of him on... the anniversary of Colby's passing.
Oh, I saw that.
Because we went to the game that night.
Yeah. That was beautiful. I loved it. You know, that was so special, and I just, oh, gosh. Emily giving us the hockey stick. She gave a hockey stick that they had, you know, there at, you know, at the arena, and she gave one to Jori and gave one to me and one to Aspire because Aspire sponsors us, and it was beautiful. I mean, I was like, oh my God, I loved special. It. It was very special. Just because it meant so much for her that we brought her back here. And this goes to show, like, you have to talk about these things. Right. And she has a podcast as well. And she wrote a book so about her, you know, journey. And these are the things that, you know, help people get through such a, you know, significant loss. Right. So it's not uncommon, and sometimes people don't understand, well, why is she doing this, you know, like, or she's trying to profit off of this, and, you know, no, it's not. It's not like that at all. It's just a healing, you know, and you have to share, and then when you start to get people telling you how much it helped them get through it, you want to do it more because it heals you at the same time. Right. Am I right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you would come in here like, I really don't want to do a podcast, but as soon as you sit down and you talk to someone, you get out, you're like, I feel so much better.
Yeah. Like, all right. Yeah. Those days where you're just like, I don't want to talk about it. I'm gonna get emotional or whatever it is, and then it's like, get through
in the beginning, I used to see that happen to you a lot. Like, you're like, gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I'm just really don't want to do this right now. And then you sit down and you start doing it. And then you come out and you're just like, God, I feel so much better.
Therapy for myself, too.
And it's healing you because you're helping others, too. That, her coming in, that whole experience was really heartwarming to me. I just feel like, and then us going to the game after the podcast, that was great because a lot of the fans came out to see her. I was like, oh my God, it was so great.
And really cool that her parents were able to make it down too. I felt like that, just like them having that time, the three of them, to be able to come here and all of them get that closure was just really cool to see.
That was great. Our last guest was Britt. Oh my God.
I know. That one's just.
That one.
If you're an emotional person, honestly, if you're anybody, you're gonna want to watch that by yourself when you're maybe not on your way to work. You're gonna cry your eyes out. Just a very emotional, just very tragic story.
Yeah,
honestly.
It was another loss, another story about miscarriage. I mean, ultimately, I don't even feel like it's a miscarriage.
I don't feel like it either.
Because it was she was 38 weeks.
Yeah.
I feel like it was. I guess the medical term is like stillborn or something. I'm not sure. But her story, a lot of the community had known about here in Bakersfield. And you wanted her to come on to share her story because, you knew that it would help people. And the crazy thing is like, there's a follower, supporter that I DM often. She actually messaged us talking about like how she just lost her baby and she wanted us to do an episode like that. But we already had Britt on the schedule for it. And I just talk to her every, some days she just has bad days and she'll message. And then I'll try to be there and message her back just to let her know that we're here for her. And when Britt came in to tell her story, I immediately thought of her. And I was just like, this is going to be something for her to watch because this is what she's going through right now. Right. Yeah. So Britt telling her story at the time, like I just started talking with this person, and she really it's going to benefit her for it.
And I just also really commend Britt on even being able to come in, honestly, because I know how hard it was for her to talk about it. And talking to her, she's just like, I feel like it's been such a long time since I've like fully told this story. And she knew she was going to be crying, emotional mess. She's like, I didn't even wear mascara today, But I just remember that my sister and I were both like early in our pregnancy when we had found out about Britt's loss. And it was just very, I actually clearly remember hearing about it. Me, my mom, and my sister were sitting on the couch at my parents' house, and I remember hearing about her and her husband losing their baby, and we all just sat there and cried. I just remember just sitting there crying, and I didn't really know Britt all that much, but my sister did because her husband and my sister's husband and Britt's husband work together and are good friends. And so I just remember even from a distance, hearing about that loss just broke our hearts. You know what I mean? It just broke our hearts, and I just can't even imagine going through that. I've gone through different type of loss, but that is also just gut-wrenching.
What I think is so beautiful is that she still keeps her baby's memory alive by pictures that she took. And she includes it. She tells her daughter now that she has about her. And it's just, and I feel like that's so healing for people if you kind of you look at it that way. Like they're still, they were still here, they're still part of your family. You don't have to like not talk about them. You can still talk about them as if they're here,
That's what her and I spoke about, is like just sometimes, especially with a tragic loss, people don't want to talk about that person usually because they don't want to bring up sad memories for you or whatever. But we both have said, there might be times where we'll cry about it, but talk about them. We want to hear about them. We want to know that you're still keeping their memory alive and you're still remembering them.
I just see what you're saying, like from, like if it was me, like, I know there's something I don't want to like mention.
Like, she's happy, she's having a good day. I'm not going to bring up Kyle or whatever, but it's like, I still want to hear about him. I still want to know the memories that you're thinking about him and all the good times that you remember from him because, I've got a head full of all the memories, but it is kind of nice to hear from someone else their own personal experience with him and their memories with him and what they think about, because I know what memories I think about, often,
And Britt was pregnant, and she did a reveal, and I saw that she was having a boy, so that was cool. And she did tell us.
She's like, okay, well, I'll be announcing it soon, but this isn't going to air right now, right? She did. She's like, okay, I can't wait any longer.
So I was all, that's so cool. I think it's a happy ending for her.
Yeah, but I think also what's important about her episode is not just talking about the loss, but talking about her mental health afterwards. The struggle of her pregnancy after losing Briar, the thoughts and struggles she went with for Rowie, her second child, and then now still how she feels about this pregnancy. You know, they're all very, very
That's
different.
That's got to be so nerve-wracking going through a pregnancy after that happening, knowing that you're never safe. You know, you have to like still take care of yourself, still worry. You know. Yeah, that's really hard. But she was amazing for coming on and telling her story. I know it was hard for her, but she did, and she felt better afterwards because I saw her post afterwards.
She's like, okay, I did it.
Yay.
Yeah, feeling proud of yourself. Plus, like we said, you got to let it out at some point. So sometimes when you just sit there and get a good cry in, it's like, I can just like breathe now and not feel like you just have all this built up like
and
sadness.
She talked about how she found comfort online. Like she would find comfort online with people that have experienced what she was going through. And again, I cannot talk about this enough that this is why we do this. Right. So we have this community to be there for each other.
And her big point on social media and following other moms who have had, late-term loss, just them having another child, or just that she said that's what she looked for, not just someone that's lost a child, but someone that's lost a child and had another child or multiple children after, because she just wanted to see that hope. And that's something like even for me, when I found my Facebook group that I was in, like a widow Facebook group, and so many people in their posts, like everybody calls it a chapter 2, which I don't really prefer to call it a chapter 2. But that's beside the point. But it's just like people talking about their happiness that they found after their loss. And so, again, just the same exact concept, just that you find someone else that has gone through it and is now happy in another relationship or whatever it is. It just made me feel like I have that hope. Like, it's not always going to be this depressing and sad, and it's not always going to be like this. It really does help to get that hope.
Right. And grief is just so different. Like, you do have like your sad moments, but then you do laugh about it too. Yeah. Like, there's that dark humor that we talk about, and everybody has it, like a little bit of it, so you just kind of, sometimes I think that's really healthy.
I know. Yeah.
To have a little bit of that, just because you need to get through the days, and you don't need to cry all the time. You got to laugh about it. So,
easier said than
done. You're not
laughing
at it, I mean, you're just, it's just the way it is. Like, I had this conversation with Lillian. I think a lot of my guests
will say something, but we like laugh about it because like it's just sounds crazy. But some people like that have not gone through loss are like, whoa, that was kind of dark. It's like, okay, it's okay. We can laugh about it.
Yeah. Well, I think this season was great. I loved all of our guests. I get so attached, too. It's so hard for me. I get so attached to everybody.
Yeah, and I think, like, just meeting such a variety of different types of people and just different stories. I think it's great. It's been going great. I hope it continues to go great.
It's going to. We have next season that we get to talk about. So we would love to hear from you guys. What subjects, what guests. You can DM us on Instagram.
I know someone had reached out about drunk driving.
Yes.
That's something we're going to be working on for next season. But other than that, if there's anything else we need to talk on more, even if there's a subject we've talked on a little bit, but we want to hear more, or different people, perspectives.
Yeah, and we also are going to do lives more too, so you'll be able to talk to Jori on live. She's so good at it. You can ask her questions. So make sure you're following us on Instagram, because that's where the lives come from. We may do some on TikTok, but we'll have to experiment, with that. We just want to thank our sponsors, Aspire Counseling Services, Aspire Behavior Health. They make this happen for us. They make this happen for Jori.
From the beginning, Aspire has been great. So supportive, and just like how do I say it? Just very supportive in letting us have the freedom of just getting these people these guests to come on, and just trusting that we're doing a good job.
Yes. Yeah, and we couldn't thank them enough for that. We are looking for co-sponsors. So if you're interested in co-sponsoring as well,
Episode sponsors, even
live sponsors. Just, let us know. You can DM us on Instagram as well. I can't wait for season 3.
I know.
I love, being able to connect with everyone and making a difference.
Right.
I feel like I'm helping you make a difference.
Absolutely.
I'm with my friend here.
Yeah.
Let's doing this for Kyle.
I'm so thankful for you too. Like, oh my gosh, like Aspire I'm so thankful for, but Teresa really, she runs the show around here. So Teresa, I'm very thankful for you.
Oh, thank you. I can't wait. I can't wait for season 3.
I'm just very thankful for Aspire because we have first season started with all of our local people, just really reaching out to our own community. Season 2, we've been able to have a further outreach, having Lillian come from New York. Right. We did have another guest lined up coming from Florida. Something came up and that didn't end up working out. Right. But yeah, that's our goal, I think, for next season is just to have this bigger outreach to more people and, to just help more than just our direct community here.
Yeah. Yeah, we're branching. I mean, we branch out of, Bakersfield, little Bakersfield. Yeah. There's a lot going on here, but, we can reach out to other.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. We have lots of listeners from all over, not just in the U.S.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Shattered Silence, and thank you guys for the support on our Season 1 and Season 2. We're looking forward to Season 3. If you guys do have anyone that is currently struggling, just share our social medias with them. You can watch full episodes on YouTube. You can listen in on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and we'll see you in Season 3.